Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Johnson, and this is the Success Estate Podcast. Thank you so much for your time and your attention, taking a look at this video or listening, however it is that you are consuming this content. I am here with I'm honored to be here with a special guest today. Today, I am here with Mr. Mark Pruitt. How you doing today?
Fine, thank you, sir.
Good. Today, by the time you're watching this, normally our show is out on Mondays, but this show will actually come out on Tuesday. Thank you so much. We're wrapping up what is known nationally as Black History Month. And you all know by previous episodes that I not only think that it's important for us to talk about great things that happen for buyers and sellers and educate people, but also too I like to have interesting conversations because I believe that East Texas is interesting. And this month being a month that we take to recognize all the contributions that Black Americans have contributed to this country. I also understand that we are constantly making history. And today I wanted to bring along speak with somebody that would have more information than I would about real estate and home ownership and lots of different things here in the East Texas community, as somebody that has been serving our community for over 40 years just at this company, State Realty. If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Pruitt, would you mind introducing yourself?
Okay, I'm Mark Pruitt, and I'm with State Realty. I've been here about 40 years.
Okay.
And that's about the gist of it.
Okay. All right, so about 40 years. Would you mind giving a little backstory on how you got started in real estate and how the brokerage came about?
Yeah, I was really working for an oil company in the 70s and 80s, and then this thing called merger mania came about, and I left the oil field and needed something to do. So real estate seemed to be a good selection. So I selected that, and I've been doing it ever since. So that's how I got into real estate.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you know about when that was that you started as? Did you have to start as an agent at that time?
Yes, at that time you had to do 2 years working with someone else under their license.
Oh, okay.
And then you could after 2 years, you could take a test, a broker's exam, and once you pass that, you can set up your own shop.
Okay.
And that's what we did.
Gotcha. And who'd you get your start with?
I started out with I had 2 companies I started. One, the first one was Otis Williams Real Estate, which was the first Black real estate broker in Longview to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed with him about a year. And then I went with Thornton and McLaughlin, which was one of Thornton and J. McLaughlin. I worked with them for a year.
Okay.
And then after that year was up, I had 2 years in. I took my exam and passed it, thank God, and opened up my own shingle.
And so, Mr. Pruitt, I understand that State Realty is a family business.
Right.
Were you married when you started as an agent?
Yes.
Okay. Did y'all both go into it together?
No, but we had the same reason for going into it, economic conditions. Both of us worked in the oil field, so to speak. And my job was terminated with Gulf Oil, and Beverly worked for another oil company, and her job was terminated at the same time. So we just, she came in after I did.
It's strange because East Texas, it seems, especially Longview, we're kind of an oil field community. We're kind of oil community, and it's constantly in the up and down. Right before I started, I actually was working in the oil field. Mm-hmm. As far as the way that things happen, at what point did your daughter decide to join in the business with you?
Well, she was in Houston at Texas Southern in school when we were going, and she left Houston and went to Georgia, went to Atlanta, stayed down there for a while, and she decided to come home for some reason, which I thank God she did. Mm-hmm. And because she's been a blessing to us. Mm-hmm. So when she got here, she was wondering what she was going to do. And we told her she had a job here if she wanted it. And she tried it out and liked it. So it worked out pretty good.
The past 6 episodes that I've had, I think all of my guests have made real estate kind of a family business. Either their parents were in the business, or they're in the business, and their children are kind of coming into the business. Was it something? I guess. Well, let me ask more clearly. How is it to you? How does it feel to you knowing that you took a big step going into real estate? This is for anybody that may not know. We're pretty much self-employed, so having to make the trek to go into something 100% commission, and now to do it in such a way that your daughter wanted to do the same thing. What does that mean for you as a husband and father and businessman?
Well, it means a lot, because we had hoped that at least one of the kids would take the mountain baton and run with it, and she did, and she ran well. So it really means a lot to see at least one of the kids be interested in doing what we had lined up to do. But at the same time, we didn't want our dream to be their dream. We want them to do what they want to do. So we made it possible for her to do it, and I think it helped some.
Sure. I think it's a funny line. I've had this discussion with my wife. I play ball here and play pretty well, I believe. As you become a man and you start a family, you kind of want to see your. I didn't reach my ultimate goal, and I had to tell myself early on not to push my dreams onto my children. I have a 6-year-old. We just played our last basketball game, and I saw some passion come out of him, and I was telling my wife that the passion, it almost sparked something up in me to say, maybe he'll want to get pushed. And my mom said, you think you should train him? And I had to remind myself that he's 6 or 7 now. He just turned 7. Was that ever something that, or how was the conversation between you and your wife to talk about, hey, we got to make sure that we keep our dreams, and not force anything on our children?
Well, we've had several discussions along those lines. The main thing is that when we talked about it, we made it possible for Latifah as well as other kids to do it too. But we told them that was just possible that they could do it. If they didn't want to do it, that was their choosing.
Sure.
But we told them that if they did decide to go that route, at least they would be on first base, if I can use some baseball terminology, as opposed to us, we had to come up with home plate.
Sure.
It's hard to get on first base when you got those guys throwing those different curveballs and fastballs at you. So we kind of ensured her that they wouldn't have to have those fastballs and curveballs and things thrown at you from home plate. She'd be on first base. Sure. And she'd come on home and do well.
What is it when they call when you got the guy that gets on base, and then is it a designated runner or what? I know that. Did you play baseball at all?
Yeah,
Did you
play that, yeah.
I know there's a guy that could come on. You have your hitter and somebody come on and run for them.
That's what that is.
And it seems to be one of the bigger things that I feel is important as I'm kind of looking at the world and trying to make sure that I live in a way not only that honors God, but puts my family in a strong position moving forward. How to get my family on base. My dad did a great job. I was fortunate, Mr. Pruitt, to grow up in a 2-parent, single-family home. We grew up in north side of Longview, Pleasant Hill on the ridge, and the land was passed down for a few generations there. So I was fortunate, but also to understanding the legacy that my great-grandfather left, and wanted to build on that. Trying to get on base sometimes is difficult. It is, especially in this business. What were some of the? Can you recall some of those curveballs that you've had to overcome to make your name in this business?
Well, basically, it has to do with financing. Usually, this is a business where usually it's 100% sales, but you need some cushion or some backup in case you don't sell. Sometimes you might go 2 or 3 months without a sale, but your rent still due, your house still due. So you need a plan B. So it was very difficult for us to get financing on those cushions. So when I say cushions, buying rental properties, where you was have some income coming in when you weren't selling. Sure. And it took a while to get that line up. And but once we got that line up, that made things better. Where if you didn't sell a house 2 or 3 months,
Sure.
your rent was still paid.
Sure.
And that's what we want for all the kids to be set up like that, so they wouldn't have to be coming in waiting for a check to come in. And a lot of times these things, you can get to the very day of closing, thing go south on you, and you could need those funds to do what you need to do. But if you had some other income coming in,
Sure.
it wouldn't be such a negative factor.
Sure. Actually, it's funny. Just today on my way over here, I've got one running. It's getting kind of scary right there at closing. And Mr. Pruitt, about 4 years ago now, 2019, I decided to go full time. It was kind of terrifying. I was part time for about 2 years, and I recognized, that for one, I had to, I guess, man up in the sense of, hey, are you gonna do this or not? Right. It seems like it's hard to do this business 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
It is.
As far as some of the ventures that you have taken on now, you don't only sell residential homes. Walking into the building, seeing that you also offer appraisals. Right. And insurance as well, right. Different things like that. Right. I saw the notary sign. What was your thought process in recognizing, like, hey, I need to spread my branches out a little bit and I guess diversify my income? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, the main thing, especially with insurance, they came individually or separately. They didn't all come at one time. Mm-hmm. But insurance was the second thing after real estate. It came about because we were selling houses, and every time we sold a house, we'd call Jim, Joe, or Mary, or somebody and say, I need to buy the insurance policy in this house here. That's
true.
And we kind of added those things up and saw how many deals we're throwing out the window every month. Mm-hmm. So we said we could be writing our own policy, and that's what we did. And what we do, we don't just write and be writing because we're there hours. We do a quote analysis, and if we're competitive, we get to bid. If we don't do it, we don't get to bid.
Sure.
But at least the option is there, which is good.
Sure. And that, to me, that just speaks to your entrepreneurial instincts there to recognize, hey, I'm sending business out. Right. We can bring this all back in. Exactly. What made you decide to be a broker? Being an agent and being a broker, those are two different hats. What made you decide, hey, we're gonna step into the brokerage side?
Yeah, well, they're very different. Basically, it's an employer and employee situation. Mm-hmm. And I've always wanted to. Well, I was in the military, and and those guys. It's a different situation when you go in the military. That you learn some things that you don't learn in the real world, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And one thing that you learn in there is to be a leader and to be your own boss, and you can run things. If you can run your thing for somebody else, you can run it for yourself. So I kind of clung to that idea that I could do it for myself. So that's why I decided to be a broker as opposed to an agent.
Okay. And which branch did you serve in the service?
I was in the Army, U.S. Army.
No, okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Thank you. I want to move past that important point. I appreciate your time. How long did you serve in the Army?
I did 3 years.
3 years. 3 years. That takes a special person to give up their time and their effort. About when was this when you joined?
Actually, I didn't join. They joined me.
Oh, really?
They sent for me. This was in 1969. It's when I got a letter from my rich uncle saying we need you. And
rich Uncle Sam.
Yeah, rich Uncle Sam. And said we need you. So that's what we did. We went in.
Okay.
And spent 3 years in there.
So you were drafted.
I was drafted, yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah.
Do you mind talking about that at all? What was that experience like? I mean, getting that letter in the mail. I'm assuming you're not an only child.
No. There are several of us. Well, I was drafted, but I kind of outsmarted myself because the war was going on then, Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really want to go in because I didn't want to go to Vietnam. Because I know about so many people losing their lives.
Yeah,
I mean, I saw it on TV every day.
Mm-hmm.
When those guys home in those body bags.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be in that body bag. So they had a deal called DEP, which is a delayed entry program, where you could delay going into service up to a year. But the catch was that you have to join up for another year in addition to the 2 years they drafted you for. So that's how I spent 3 years. The Army don't have a 3-year program where they draft you 3 years. It's a 2-year draft. But because of that DEP, delayed entry program, I had to take another year. But it worked out good in a sense because when I did go in, by the time I went in a year later and did my basic training, the war was winding down.
It was coming, okay.
It was coming to a close.
Gotcha.
So I didn't have to go to Vietnam, which
Gotcha.
Thank God for that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Thank God, because I've of course the history books recall an ugly war. Like I said, with too many casualties in that war. Well, thank you for your service. And Mr. Pruitt, how do you feel like? I know you said that shaped you and pushed you towards becoming a broker.
Yeah, it did. They they have a good leadership program in the military, and it helps you. What you call, I used the term a few minutes ago, man up. It really helps you to man up and be what you want to be and do what you want to do. But you just can't just do it by saying you're going to do it. It takes planning.
Sure.
And that's what they teach you is strategies and planning and strategic things on what to do and how to do it and when to do it. And that's why I say it was a good experience for me. As well.
Were you married at this time when you were?
No, I was single.
Okay. Well, as far as some of the going back to your baseball analogy, and I personally, of course, this is all history that I'm reading as I was born in 1989. So a lot of things I didn't see or experience, but I've read kind of what started me on my journey and desiring to educate Black people and make sure to do my best to help us make good decisions in home ownership if people so choose to. I personally believe that home ownership is the foundation for building wealth in any people group.
It is.
And so when I saw the disparities in Black home ownership versus other communities, it really kind of spurred me on. I'd like to get your thoughts on my take. So I remember reading about the Oregon Trail, when they settled Oregon, and how they, like the first 500 people, I believe they gave free land to. And I know it was a treacherous journey and all of that. A lot of different dangers that people would encounter. Those white people that went there originally, and then also too after that, the people that came after, they were given land for like $2 an acre. I just imagine how much those things have appreciated over the years. I'm bullish on buying houses especially if you're a young man. You feel like you are in a place where you're not leaving, you're not going to be moving around a lot. I feel like it's important for a young man to establish himself by buying a home and purchasing his portion of America. What are your thoughts on that? Do you believe that people should be buying homes, even especially right now with all the ways that things are changing, I guess, with COVID and interest rates and house prices fluctuating? What are your thoughts on Black home ownership?
Well, I think it's the best way. I agree with you when you say it's a foundation of obtaining wealth. So I agree with 100%. I even agree more so that when you were talking about, even if you're going to be in an area a short period of time, 2, 3, 5 years, you still come out better by buying a house than by just paying rent and having receipts at the end of the month. So the way things are appreciated in these houses and everything, if you stay there a year, 2 years, you still could make, the worst you can do is break even.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest that if a guy's going to be in any place, wherever it is, 2 or 3 years or longer, that they buy a house rather than rent one.
Mm-hmm. And then to me, it kind of starts you off. I tell everybody kind of my plan. I have 3 boys. I would, before the bare minimum, I'd like to have a house for each one of them before I leave this earth. If the Lord says the same, I'd like to have a house for each one of them before I leave. That way, if they decide, hey, I want to live here rent free, do it. Or their children, they can live there rent free, or they can sell it as, after they get it. I don't care what they do with it, as long as I want to instill principles into them, not to just have the money so that you can spend it, but if you take the capital and go put it towards another business or something like that, that'd be perfectly fine. I also believe that if for somebody like you, that young man that you kind of framed, you 2 or 3 years there, you could take that house, even if you did need to move, learn the skill of renting, being a landlord.
Right.
I assume that y'all have several properties here in Longview. What was that like, that becoming a landlord? How's that experience been for you?
Well, it's both good and bad. It can be frustrating. Everybody's not suited or kind to be a landlord because it can be very frustrating. You get a lot of calls and everything. Some people even call you by the light bulb side, and that can be frustrating. But on the other side, the flip side is that it's a good experience, and it's a good way to continue your foundational wealth.
Sure.
And be able to pass on to the kids, help them be on first or second, third base. If I can again use that baseball analogy, because that's what it's going to take. You just about have to have some help.
Sure.
And I think the Bible speaks of leaving an inheritance for your kids. So if we just did that, like you just said, on the house of each one of our kids, that's a great step in the right direction right there. If more people felt that way, we'll be a lot further down the road.
Do you feel like there's a resistance amongst us in home ownership? Do you feel like there's a resistance there, or do you, or even even pessimism? I mean, as far as the ability to buy homes, have you experienced anything like that in your years?
Yeah, there's some resistance or pessimism, what you want to call it. There's quite a bit of that. But a lot of that has to do with training. And for some reason, we kind of missed school the day they taught training. So if we could get caught up on that. And I think it should be more than just the parents. It should be a community concern.
Sure.
Or either even a church concern. There should be things set aside, even the churches, where they give seminars on home buying, first-time home buyers, renters insurance, and different things that would help the community. Because in the end, when you help the community, you're helping the church, you're helping the family, you're helping everybody.
Exactly.
It's a win-win situation.
I honestly feel a little. I was able, at the church we attend now, I was able to do a seminar a few years ago. My only concern was that people would be, oh well, he's here just to make money. Having to shed that for one, because while I technically am a salesman, I don't like selling in this because it's such a large purchase. I tend to believe that, and this is just my own personal beliefs. I tend to believe that if somebody wants to buy a house, I don't really have to talk them into it. I just need to help them, guide them along the way, especially with all the technology and things. I'm normally not sending anybody a house that they haven't seen online already, and so it kind of feels the same thing as I think I'm starting to notice a shift in that guys my age are looking around and saying, man, I need to buy something, to own something. So I'm appreciative of that and wanting to educate, especially black men. What are some things that you think that anybody that's considering buying a house should know and understand going into it?
Well, first thing I would say is not an overnight thing. It's like anything else. You need to plan for it. You just can't just wake up one morning and say, I think I'm going to buy a house. Because you have to look at your credit. That makes a difference. That makes a big difference. You have to look at the cost it's going to take to acquire this house, whether it's down payment, closing costs, what have you. And most people do not have overnight down payment, closing costs, and what it takes just to get a house. And it takes time to do that. So if they would strategize, so to speak, and look at the long-term effect of it, plan on doing something maybe 6 months, a year down the road, and then go talk to a realtor or go talk to your banker and tell him what you're trying to do. You intend to buy a house in 6 months, a year. Well, what do you need to do? And that banker could tell you, or that realtor could tell you, in 6 months or 12 months, you need X amount of dollars, and you need this kind of credit score to get there. And that would help, because a lot of people, we've had that quite a few times. You got a guy that's got the money, but for a down payment closing cost, but don't have the credit score, and the bank's still not going to take the money.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to plan.
Sure. As far as like I said, you've been in business here for 40 years. I imagine that the landscape has changed some here in Longview. Are you primarily Longview, or do you serve pretty much all of East Texas?
I would say within a 20 or 30 mile radius. 20,
30 mile radius. Okay. Speaking, just primarily to Longview, how have things changed, especially for Black ownership? Do you feel like you've seen an increase over the last 40 years, or a decrease? What's been your experience?
Yeah, I think it's been an increase. Of course, that's not saying much, because if you look at where you started from, where you are now, you can't say, especially compared to other groups and everything.
Right.
You can't say you made large, giant steps, but you can say there's been improvement. That's worth something. We've traditionally been back on the back burner as far as home buyer. I know for the longest, when we first started, every time a Black guy come in here, 90% of the time they wanted to rent something. What do you have for rent? When the other guys come in here, what do you have for sale? There's a big difference in those two conversations.
That's right.
And I think training and education is a key to that.
I oftentimes get a little, I guess I should say, where your office is here. I don't know of any other broker on south of 80. So you're serving in the community. You look on places like citydata.com, and you'll notice that most of the population of Black people in Longview reside here, close to this office. Were you strategic in putting your office here and keeping it here over 40 years?
Well, I started out on the south side, and it's the kind of thing it's been good to me. So even when we moved from other location, we wanted to stay on the south side, because that's an area that we're identified with, that we knew the people, and we had support from the people. So we tried to stay where we were known. Sure.
I imagine that there are different hurdles and things. I get upset a lot of times when I'm having conversations with people that are like watching the news or hearing things from people that don't actually live in Longview about Longview, and especially about South Longview. I've sold several houses. Actually put my sister-in-law in one of my favorite neighborhoods, Ware Acres, which is considered South Longview. Just right over here on Covington, you see lots of beautiful houses and things like that. I feel like there's a lack of appreciation for South Longview, and also a stigma of what is actually, and I'll be honest, that I may have held some of that stigma until we got married, and until I started in real estate. What are some of the do you feel like there are some stigmas and things out there that don't necessarily hold true based on your experience here?
Yeah, well, that stigma is still real about the good and bad, so to speak, or north is good and south is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's reflected in the whole 9 yards, banking, city hall, the whole
Mm-hmm.
community.
Mm-hmm.
Even at one time, when city, I have heard somebody that worked for the city saying, if you spend money on the south side, you're spending good money after bad money, which that's not the case.
What?
Yeah, that's been a statement that's been said over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But of course now things are more high tech. You don't hear stuff like that anymore.
Sure.
But still, even you don't hear it, you still see it. You know,
Mhm.
still not the same. You don't
Right.
look at the growth over there as you do over here, and that's just the way it is, and it's gonna take a while to change that.
Mm-hmm. I do find it funny. I listened to. I went through the Leadership Longview program, and one of the more known commercial agents here in Longview, had a discussion talking about how Longview is actually small in size. Like the city is actually small in size, and the room for growth. As a young man, you're like, hey, what can we do here? Even though Longview is primarily marketed as a retirement city. Where me and my wife, of course, we're always looking for something to do, to get out and about, and there wasn't a whole lot of things. And when we brought this up to this gentleman, he said, well, Longview is actually, compared to cities like Tyler, we don't have a lot of room to spread out. And I honestly, I'm starting to watch some things. I see there were a lot of things that were supposed to be moving north that have kind of halted, and now it seems like things are starting to gravitate back south. Because one of the things that always baffled me is how is that we have everything on the north side of Longview, but the interstate is right here. Do you have any theories or knowledge on why these things have kind of transpired the way they have? That you would like to?
No, that's just the way it is.
Okay, I understand.
That's just the way it is.
Just the way it is.
It's not going to change overnight.
I hear you. I would actually like to be, a catalyst in some of those things change. I see that they're putting things out there on Essex Parkway, and I hope to see things improve, because I do believe when you see businesses and things improve, I encourage more home ownership, especially amongst us, because when you're vested in the community with your home, you start to see people take care of their homes. When it's yours, you want to take care of it a little bit differently than when it's somebody else's. And then on top of that, if you start spending those dollars locally in that area, you're going to see the business. Hopefully, if you have responsible business owners, you'll be able to see them to improve. And when you start to see those things improve, you start seeing outsiders looking in and say, how can we come invest here and spend some money and grow the community even more?
Right.
That's kind of my hope for as I continue in this. And I got into this to kind of start moving towards the investment side, but also invest and improve over the years as I get a chance to. Now I had somebody. I don't know about this, and I don't know if you have any knowledge of it. But I look at those houses like they're over there on Covington. I believe that's Covington right over here.
Yeah,
right over here, and they're beautiful, beautiful houses. Now somebody came to me, a young lady that works here in the community. She said, "Well, this is where it was predominantly a white neighborhood, at the time, and now things started to shift and move north." Did you see or experience any of that as far as like things, the demographic of people in the neighborhoods in South Longview transition and move out of the area?
Oh yeah, I remember very well the changes in the 60s and 70s. That's when it really took place, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, early 80s. When it wasn't predominantly, it was it wasn't a predominant thing. It was 100%. It might be the predominant black now, but at one time it was 100% white. And then this thing called, I'm sure you've heard of it, called white flight.
Sure.
And that's what took place. And that's all over the city of Longview, especially on the south side. But most of these neighborhoods, whether they're larger homes or smaller homes, That's why predominantly, where you see predominantly blacks now, it was basically all white folks that lived there.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've read a lot about those different things, and like you said, the white flight, and which I'm always I try not to get on any tangent or anything right now where I get frustrated about certain things that are said or done as far as the quote unquote equality,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm sitting here looking at a disparity in how, okay, if you take one area and it's extremely valuable, and then you won't hardly let in it. Well, let me say the qualifications that would take for somebody to purchase the place that you're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for them to come by, mainly because of employment opportunities,
Right.
different things like that. You may not even be able to get loans from a bank to be able to purchase this property, even if you want to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden you're taking what others have deemed as valuable, and you're leaving it,
Mm-hmm.
and leaving the community in a difficult place.
Mm-hmm.
I always get a little upset, I guess I'll say it, in all honesty,
Yeah.
with some of the conversation now, like, oh, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It's like, well, we didn't just start at the finish line. We kind of started behind
Exactly.
the starting line,
Mm-hmm.
and now trying to move our way forward.
Exactly.
Which I can see the path forward. Just as a community, it would take literally everybody.
It would.
It would
Yeah.
literally take everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Pruitt, did you grow up here in Longview?
No, I'm from White Oak.
From White Oak? Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
I'm a transplant.
Transplant. Is White Oak any different from Longview? It feels like it's Longview for the.
It's more complicated.
It's more complicated.
More complicated.
About when did you settle here in Longview?
I think I moved to Longview probably about 72, 73.
72, 73. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
About that time, I'm imagining. Well, not long before that, things are integrating. That time were your schools integrated at that time?
Yeah, they started in 66.
66. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably graduated in
66.
66. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
That was the first one to go to White Oak. That was the first year they started it.
What was that experience?
Traumatic.
Traumatic?
Yeah,
I imagine.
traumatic.
I imagine. Is there anything you would feel comfortable to share about your experience at that time there in White Oak?
Well, it was a good experience. I think all experience can go both ways. It can be bad and be good. Just depending on how you look at it. And
Sure.
there were some positive things, there were some negative things.
Sure.
But it worked out good. Of course, if I had my brothers, I would have rather finished at Weldon. I went to school at Weldon in Glenville for 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And all my brothers, all my sisters, and all my relatives had finished from Weldon, had a green ring on their finger, which was a graduating ring. And I didn't get a chance to get that. I was just 1 year short. So if I had my brothers, I would have rather finished up at Weldon, where I was very familiar with everybody, and wanted the green ring. But I went and got the burgundy ring at White Oak, and it worked out pretty good.
Sure.
It's nothing. It wasn't too bad.
Are you the youngest in your family?
No, I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle.
In the middle. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you kind of had to blaze the way for your siblings there.
Right.
Did they have the kind of same traumatic experience as you did?
Well, no, I guess you say as time goes by, things get better and better, so to speak. So I was the first one there, and it was kind of difficult. But those guys that come on behind us, they said things were better than what we said they were, and that's good.
Yep. You've been blazing a lot of trails. I see there in the school, and one of the I guess one of the first black brokerages here. Maybe not the first one, but one of the second. I try to communicate to people, not in a way. I've never been one to make any excuses. My family didn't bring me up that way. My dad wouldn't let me fall back on any excuse. I'm black, and they won't do. You just go ahead and do what you're supposed to do, and things should turn out will turn out how they need to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have to explain to people that it's different being a black male,
Mm-hmm.
especially now. I don't know how it was when you started, but now there's predominantly white women, middle-aged white women that are in the space here in East Texas.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for you as a black man and an agent? Did you and a broker? Did you experience any difficulties in that regard?
Not major.
Not major.
It was even then. There was still more women. It was rare. It was more men then, not black men, white men, more of them in real estate than there are now. But there have always been, I think, since I've been in business, more women than men. And I think the thing about that is, I get the stigma behind that situation was that it was just something to do on the side. It wasn't a real job.
Right.
That the husband had a real job and he worked, and the women did this something for something to do. But it turns out that it was and it is a real job.
Right.
And they make as much money, if not more, than many of the husbands now.
I told her, I've been fortunate. This is the most money I've made in my life, and I got a chance to spend some time in the oil field and everything.
Yeah.
That stigma, fortunately, I'm starting to see more young black men move towards, hey, what would it take to be a real estate agent? What would be some advice you would have for a young man considering, hey, I think about becoming a real estate agent? What kind of advice would you give to them?
I would say not to do it just for the money. You need to like it. You need to like helping people, working with people, because you got to have a people's personality in this business here. And you have to understand that because how many people you know, how popular you are, that real estate is not a business where the people come to you. You just back when to go to them.
So, and to that point, I, like I said, being able to play ball here in Longview. My parents played ball. My mom was All-American, and I remember thinking when I got started, because I feel like everywhere I go, I wanted to get as far away from here, Mr. Pruitt, because my parents knew too many people. I had too much family. Both sides of my family were huge. I got people out there in Mayflower and Avon, of course, coming this way, and then I got a lot of people here in Longview. And I thought when I got started, that the people were just gonna be flocking my way, wanting to buy a house. I really had no understanding. It really is a thing of having to build your own business as an agent. What are some of the, if you wouldn't mind me asking, what are some of the things you've implemented as a businessman in order to help your business to thrive?
Well, you try and have a personality dealing with people, and you have to be concerned about people. Like they say about a preacher, it's the difference between a preacher and a pastor. You can preach, but you may not be able to pastor. Because you don't have the love for the people. And that's what this real estate deal is. You have to love people.
Wow.
You have to really be able to deal with them, different personalities, and be willing to help them, even though they may not understand that's what you're trying to do in many cases. So that's one of the things that we've done is try to just educate people, make them aware, even if they didn't buy the house from them, make them aware of what's going on, what the process was, what it takes to do what they want to do.
Sure.
And I think if you got an educated person, you got a better person you can deal with and help, as opposed to an uneducated person who doesn't know what it takes to do what he wants to do.
Sure. That's kind of one of the foundations, that I've tried to, establish amongst people that I'm able to work with. It's like, hey, let me educate you on the information. It's a weird place to try to not give too much information, but give enough information where people can make a solid decision before they get into something and they don't know how to back out of it. Right. At your time here, do you pay pretty close attention to the things that are going on down there at City Hall? Do you keep your ear pretty close to things that are going on around the city?
Not as much as I used to. I used to be involved with the city. I used to be on the city council, and I used to be
Okay, I didn't know
kind
that.
of kept an eye on things, doing prior to that and doing that period and a period after that. But now, as time goes on, you kind of fade away and things become less interested,
Sure,
or you have less time to deal with it.
sure, sure,
So I'm still concerned about things, what's going on, but I'm not as involved as I used to be.
sure. How was your time on city council?
It was quite an experience. Quite an experience.
Was that the only position you've held in the community? Did you? Was there any other community involvement that you had?
Well, I've been on several boards and been involved with the Chamber, Lumber Metro Chamber of Commerce, the NAACP, and like I said, different boards with the city and the county.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been involved, but here lately, as time goes on, you kind of
Sure.
get further away
Sure.
from it.
Now you started one of those organizations, didn't you?
I was one that started one of the originators of the Long Metro Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. What was the goal for Longview Metro Chamber of Commerce? What's the goal when you all started?
Basically equality, trying to promote businesses on the south side.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, and I guess it hadn't changed a whole lot. Well, it's changed some, but all the businesses at that time were going north, and we wanted to bring some of the businesses on the south side. So that was the primary objective or goal of this chamber, to get businesses set up on the south side, concerned about the south side.
Sure. What kind of roadblocks do you see in that regard? Is it just primarily the allure of potential buyers and things that was drawing everything north? What kind of roadblocks did y'all run into?
Well, you got this thing is organized. I mean, things don't just happen. It's organized.
That is
so
true.
they don't just go north, be going north. There's a reason for it, and it's just like Ukraine, for example. They are doing what they are doing because they've got a lot of help. They're doing as well as they're doing.
Sure.
Facing this giant because of the help they're getting from the
Sure.
other giants.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that's the same way it is with Chamber of Commerce or anything else. If you got somebody that's standing behind you, got your back, so to speak, you can do some things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you see stuff going that way, because it's organized.
Sure.
And anytime you got an organization like the Longview Lowboat, they're supposed to be a well-organized machine, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're well-organized or well-oiled or whatever, you can do halfway decent.
Sure. Do you feel like, how do you feel about your time there, Longview Metro Chamber of Commerce? Do you feel like y'all achieved a lot of what you hoped to achieve?
Well, I don't think we achieved a lot of what we hoped to achieve, but I think one of the things we did do, we opened some eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That is the thing about if you reach for the moon, if you don't get it, you end up with a handful of stars. You've done good.
Sure.
So I think we reached for the moon and didn't get it, but we did end up with some few stars.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Are there things that you encourage your any organizations that you encourage your daughter or young black people to get involved with now? Are there organizations that you feel are important for our community?
Well, whatever organization I would say they want to get involved in, I would like for them to get in it because they feel they can contribute and they feel they can help, and not get in it for themselves, to get recognition for themselves or
Sure.
make money for themselves.
Sure.
It should be if it's going to work, you're going to have to have a pastor's heart, so to speak. You have to be concerned for the people, love
Sure.
for the people.
Sure. And just to kind of wrap things up here, I wanted to get your take on the current market. A lot of people are talking about a big crash and things like that. I've yet to see it, but for the past couple of years, they've been talking about the markets crashing and things like that. Do you have any thoughts on the market right now?
Well, the thing about the market, especially for its housing, which I think is kind of insane when these people been putting all these 20 and 30 bids on one house and paying $300,000 for $200,000 house. I think that's insane, because as soon as the bubble bursts and these people decide to sell 2 or 3 years down the road, this $300,000 house they paid for, They're gonna be on the water.
Sure.
And what are you gonna do then when you're ready to sell or
Sure.
transfer or do something different?
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up probably the bank will end up with the problem.
Sure. Mr. Pruitt, as far as your, I talked a little bit about where some places that I enjoy here in the South of Longview, and I'd like to erase a little bit of the stigma that comes with with especially with South Longview. Do you have any favorite neighborhoods over here that any neighborhoods that you feel are great for young people or any homeowners to come check out?
I think it's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other.
Mm-hmm.
By that I mean, to me, all neighborhoods are good as far as I'm concerned. Now there are some areas where you might have some more police calls, but as far as something being bad or something being better than the other, I really wouldn't think that's the case.
Sure.
I think as far as you're talking about robbery or having police come out all the time.
Well, just more so preference. Anything, if you had to buy several houses that that you would, if you just had money to blow and you could buy in several different areas for yourself, just to have little spots all over Longview. There are places that you would prefer to be.
No, I think they're all similar, so to speak.
Sure.
Now you have a couple of areas over here that's a little more, I guess you might call more prestigious than others.
Mm-hmm.
You got the deal here on Milton and Sylvan and Noah,
Mm-hmm.
where at one time you had senators and congressmen living in that area.
Okay.
You have another area where you had lawyers, like Covington you mentioned, where you had lawyers and doctors living in there. Those are still nice areas.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just had money to throw away or how you said spend it here and there,
Mm-hmm.
I would have no problem buying a house in that Marble Addition area or
Sure.
the Covington area, because I think they're just as good or safe as anywhere in town.
Sure. And definitely, I mean, all of that. I think that, like I said, you can find that anywhere. I tell everybody, now we bought our home right off of Justin Road, and smack dab in the middle of Longview.
Mm-hmm.
I hear about all these different things all over the city. Oh, Longview is this, Longview is that. The crime is what it is, and literally 3 doors down from me, somebody got stabbed right outside.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of made me realize, which I something I kind of already knew, but you trouble gonna be everywhere.
Yes, there's no one is exempt.
No, there's no place exempt. So I don't necessarily. And then when you go and look at the data, even what's considered, high crime here in Longview compared to other cities,
Mm-hmm.
we're actually doing pretty good.
Well,
We're actually
think
doing
so.
pretty good. I'm actually proud to be from where I am, and I'm proud of the city and how we have held together over the years. I definitely know that things could be a lot better.
Right.
There's always probably a great room for improvement, especially in this country. But I'm proud of our city. Any final thoughts or anything, Mr. Pruitt, you'd like to put on record?
No, it's been interesting. Nothing in particular.
Okay. Well, Mr. Pruitt, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sitting down with me,
Yes, sir.
enlightening us on some of East Texas that I know that I could not have been able to relay. I really appreciate your time and letting me come into your establishment here and sitting with me here for a few minutes.
Okay.
So I greatly appreciate it, and I'd love to have you back on the show sometime. That would be all right.
Okay.
All right. Well, hey, Mr. Pruitt, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And I look forward to the next time.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Y'all, thank you so much for your time. I hope you found this not only informative, but I also hope that you found this interesting. I hope you found the conversation interesting. If you have any questions, any thoughts, anything you'd like to put in the comment section there, how do you feel about how East Texas has grown over the years? What are some things you look forward to in our area, especially in the Longview area? What are some things you look forward to in our area? I definitely believe it's a conversation we should continue to have and have together. I am one that is bullish on Black Americans, especially here in our area, owning and owning homes. If it's something that you're interested in, you have a wonderful office here at State Realty. What's the telephone number here, Mr. Pruitt?
903-758-0027.
903-758-0027. Wonderful office. People that I can say that I've actually worked with in some of these transactions that I've been blessed to have over the year. If you're looking to buy a house, if you're looking for information, there's a wonderful team here. You can also give me a call, 903-806-6905. We're competing, but we're not in competition.
Right.
Any of these wonderful establishments would be this wonderful establishment here on 600 South Marbury. 600 South Marbury. Y'all come on down and come have a talk with some of these fine agents. Thank you so much for your time. I would appreciate it if you would like, share, subscribe to the channel that you're consuming this content through. If you're on Spotify, please subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you get notified anytime we have a show. And if you're on YouTube, please do the same thing. Thank you all so much, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you.